Hey YouTube, Strictly Broken here, doing another Strictly Rants for you guys today. It's currently very early and it's also not Saturday. Apologies for last week not being on the show. It was quite busy. Richmond Regionals was Sunday and I just wanted to play AOT and test. But yeah, we're back on it. Although this Strictly Rants is a bit late, you know, it's better late than never, I guess. And today's topic and the reason for it being late is because it's a very, I think it's a very kind of important topic. It's very important to talk about this because I think it's just not really addressed that much and should be addressed more. And it's the discussion of whether or not topping is what is indicative of a good player. So the question that is brought forth and is the title of the video is, do good players need to top? Or however you want to spin it, does topping make you a good player? That's like this, it's not the same meaning, but it's how you can spin the question. I think to preface this kind of rant, I need I think the absolute thing that needs to be understood is that these type of things aren't really black and white. There's no absolute. When there's a topic like this, there's many possibilities, right? And if you get into the mindset of saying good players must top, bad players will not top, so so people who are in top 8 must be good. It's very dangerous because life is rarely about heads or tails, black and white, yes and no. Life is all about this spectrum of possibilities. And once you get into this dangerous mindset that this spectrum doesn't exist, you're really, it's just a very unproductive conversation because you're basically arguing about something that isn't actually modeled after a realistic life. I've topped a lot of events, and I'm not saying this to show off my ability as a player, although that may be true. And one key thing that is unavoidable in a game that has randomization, that thrives on randomization. If card games weren't random, they wouldn't be fun. If Hearthstone, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Waste, Pokemon, if these games weren't random, there would be less stories to tell, there would be less exciting moments, there would be less situations where you had to have the perfect draw to win the game. And I think that takes away from the card game dynamic. So luck is a part of the game. Luck is vital to the part of the game. Luck is why these games are fun in the first place. And so discounting luck as a huge factor to, for example, how I can go back to back wins, or like I've talked like what 7, 8 events now. Just stuff like that. It's hard to discredit the factor of luck. And when people make top 8, they may do so because of their overwhelmingly incredible ability and understanding of the game, but also you cannot discredit how lucky people have to be to get top 8. You need to only lose once in 5, 6, 7 rounds. That's a pretty good record, right? It's a pretty good record, and you don't need to get alarmingly lucky, but you definitely need to you need to be hot that day, somewhat hot. If you're just unlucky, you're gonna be out. So do all good players make top 8? Good, quote unquote. No. You'll have a range of people making top 8 of abilities, a range of abilities, and good. When I say good in this video, of course I'm referring to the best the game has to offer right now. And there's no way that we're seeing that consistently in every top 8. And there's other reasons too. I mean, to be the best of the best, like each region won't even have more than like a handful of them. And so in top 8, you probably, if all the best make it, you probably still have 3, 4 spots that aren't necessarily good quote unquote players. They might be like very, like they might be above average, good, whatever, but they're not the best. So we can agree very easily that not all top 8 are quote unquote good players, but the harder one to dissect is whether or not uh, good players, those ones that do exist, the elite, the quote unquote elite, do they have to make top 8? They are, so to speak, if they are good and they're not stroking their own ego, stroking their own cock. I do think that they are favored because, and this is speaking from my experience, I think I understand this game on a fundamental level that is like just an incredible understanding of this game from my experience playing it, and that does help me a lot. In matchups, I often win games because I just understand the opponent's deck better than they understand their own deck. If you have players like that in your region, of course they're overwhelmingly favored to make top 8. But I'll be honest, some don't. Some people that I think are very good have never made a top 8 before. And what does that mean? What does that mean? How do we understand that? How do we come to grasp that? And I gotta be completely 100% honest, how I feel about this is that if you're a good, quote unquote, good player, good understanding of the game, you understand everyone's decks better than they play their own decks, your misplays are minute, irrelevant to the game state, you don't make strategic errors, or your strategy succeeds over like multiple turns. Those people who I think are that good, I know a couple who have never topped, and I gotta be honest, they're not good. You can't call them a good player. I can call them, I can say, oh, I think you're really good, but to be a good player, I think you actually have to be recognized. And to be recognized, you need results. And that's the hardest thing to stomach for some people. And I'm sure there's going to be a ton of argument discussion here, and that's where it's awesome, because I think argument and discussion is great. But I think that if you're not showing results as a good player, you can't call yourself a good player. Other people shouldn't be calling you a good player because you have no tangible reason to back up how good you are or tangible result. Goku in Dragon Ball had the ability. He was very calm. He could go Super Saiyan at any point. But until he goes Super Saiyan, you don't actually realize how powerful he is in the anime, right? It's kind of like the principle like that. You have to. There needs to be something of face value to evaluate before someone can call you good. And no matter how much theory you spew out, no matter how much you talk about how you understand the game better than everyone else, how your deck builds are better, you have the best builds, you have the best play, you top locals every week. No matter how many times you say stuff like that, if you don't top a major event, you have no credibility. There are millions of people in the world probably who are smarter than some of the people we think are the smartest in the world. But why is Stephen Hawking considered super smart, while someone we don't know who lives in China who's just like doing some insane codes on his own? Why don't we consider him anything? Because he has no credibility, he has no reputation, he hasn't established himself, and that is key. When you want to call yourself good, you have to establish yourself. So it's kind of like this. You think you're a good player. Now that's the first trial. That's the first process. You've trained, you've practiced. Now you understand way shorts on a fundamental level. But until you top that event, you haven't finished your goal. You haven't finished your journey. You're only halfway there, right? That's the key. I think people will stop and kind of settle themselves in a state of limbo when they think they're good and their results aren't showing. Like they just give up because they're like, I want to see my results. But you can't give up if you think you're good, because you're not good until you show those results. It's the other half of the equation, right? And like I said, nothing's black and white. But what it comes down to here is, although nothing's black and white, society's perception, and why I had to preface this video with the discussion on black and white, is black and white. Society's perception is totally black and white. If you don't post results, no one can consider the spectrum. Why would anyone consider the spectrum? There's too many things to process on a daily basis. I need to, I need to process my own life. I don't care if you're on a spectrum of being good. You're not even me. I don't give a shit about you. But and so you'll be viewed based on your results as being either good or bad. If you think you're really good, post some results. People will think you're good, especially if you are good. Because a lot of people post results, but they're not good, quote unquote. So you got to be that. So you have to meet the expectation of having the skill, having the ability, having the talent, and topic, and then that's the mark of a good player, right? That's the key. That's how I honestly feel about the topic. It's a controversial one. I'm expecting a lot of discussion, but to sum it all up very simply, if you want to be considered good, you have to top. Not because topping is what makes you good, but because you cannot be validated. You cannot have the reputation, the credibility, unless you top to be considered a good player. That's it. It's this episode of Strictly Rants. As usual, every Saturday, Strictly Rants appears on the channel, weekly show. And as usual, guys,